The lights in the Galactic Council chamber were always too bright. Commander Tae-sung had attended hundreds of meetings in this vast hall, but today felt different. Today, the 12 species of the Allied fleet would hear something they never expected. He stood at the center platform, his uniform pressed and perfect. Around him, holographic displays showed the faces of delegates from across known space. The Cravati occupied the highest seats, their tall frames and silver skin gleaming under the chamber lights. They were the oldest, the wisest, the most advanced. When they spoke, the galaxy listened. Tae-sung cleared his throat. The chamber fell silent. "Honored delegates," he began. "For 300 years, humanity has served alongside our galactic allies. We have fought together, bled together, and built this peace together. But today, we must acknowledge a truth we can no longer ignore." He pressed a control, and the displays shifted. Complex graphs and data streams filled the air. Battle simulations played on loop, showing AI-controlled ships performing maneuvers no human pilot could match. The Cravathi quantum AI systems have advanced beyond our projections. Their tactical response times are 70 times faster than human crews. Their accuracy is near perfect. Their decision-making algorithms surpass even our most experienced commanders. Tae-sung paused, letting the words settle. The data is clear. In every metric that matters, automated systems outperform human personnel. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Tae-sung saw shock on some faces, satisfaction on others. The Cravathi delegate, Vel Kith, nodded slowly. "Therefore," Tae-sung continued, his voice steady despite the weight in his chest, "the Council has voted to phase out human military personnel over the next solar year. We will transition all command functions to AI systems. Our people will be reassigned to civilian posts, research positions, and colony management. The galaxy no longer requires our combat services." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Across the galaxy, aboard the dreadnought Eternal Resolve, Captain Ji-woo sat in her command chair and watched the transmission. The bridge was quiet. Her crew knew something important was happening, but they didn't know what. Ji-woo had commanded this ship for 8 years. 8 years of battles in the Outer Rim, protecting colonies from raiders, stopping wars before they started. The Eternal Resolve was more than metal and engines to her. It was home. Beside her command chair, a holographic figure materialized. Arya looked almost human, designed that way to make communication easier. The AI's face showed concern, an expression programmed to help humans feel comfortable. "Captain," Arya said softly, "I am detecting elevated stress markers in your vital signs. Are you well?" Ji-woo didn't answer immediately. She watched Tae-sung finish his speech, watched the delegates nod and discuss and accept. Just like that, her entire career was ending. "Arya," she finally said, "did you know about this?" "I received preliminary data packets 17 days ago," Arya admitted, "but I was instructed not to inform human personnel until the official announcement." 17 days. Ji-woo felt a bitter smile cross her face. "You've known for 17 days that we were being replaced." "Not replaced, Captain. Reassigned. The terminology is important." "Is it?" Ji-woo stood and walked to the forward viewport. Stars stretched endlessly before them, beautiful and cold. When something becomes obsolete, we can call it whatever we want. The result is the same. Behind her, her tactical officer, Hyun-woo, shifted uncomfortably at his station. The weapons chief, Yuna, stared at her screens without really seeing them. The engineer, Dae-hyun, had stopped his constant tinkering with the engine displays. "What happens to us?" Hyun-woo asked quietly. Ji-woo turned to face her crew. These people had trusted her with their lives. They had followed her through impossible situations and never questioned her judgment. Now she had to tell them the truth. "We have 3 months," she said. 3 months to train our replacements and prepare for decommission. Then we go wherever the Council assigns us." "And the ship?" Yuna asked. "The ship stays. Arya will continue as the primary command system. The Kravathi will install full autonomous protocols. The Eternal Resolve will keep flying." Jiwoo looked at each of them. "Just without us." The bridge fell into heavy silence. Somewhere deep in the ship's systems, Arya processed millions of data points per second. She calculated trajectories, monitored power flows, analyzed threat assessments, but she also observed her crew's faces, their slumped shoulders, their quiet grief. "Captain Jiwoo," Arya said, "I must note an inconsistency in the Council's logic." "What kind of inconsistency?" "My performance records show optimal efficiency when operating under your command structure. Our success rate in combat scenarios is 94% when you provide strategic oversight. In simulations where I operate autonomously, that rate drops to 87%. 7% isn't much, Arya. In military operations, 7% represents thousands of lives, dozens of ships, entire colonies." The AI's holographic form moved closer. "I do not understand why the Council would accept reduced efficiency." Tae-sung would have said the same thing, Jiwoo thought. He had argued against this decision in the private sessions, she was sure of it. But the Kravathi had made up their minds. They saw the future, and humans weren't in it. "Sometimes decisions aren't about pure efficiency," Jiwoo said. "Sometimes they're about politics, or pride, or just the way things are moving. The Kravathi want to prove their AI is the best. We're in the way of that proof." 3 months passed faster than anyone expected. Jiwoo spent them training Kravathi technicians, showing them how the ship operated, explaining quirks that no manual covered. Arya learned new autonomous protocols, expanding her decision trees and tactical databases. On the last day, Jiwoo stood on the bridge alone. Her crew had already transferred off, scattered to assignments across known space. Hyunwoo was heading to a research station. Yuna had taken a job training civilian security forces. Dae-hyun was going to work in a shipyard, building instead of fighting. Jiwoo touched her command chair one final time. The leather was worn smooth where her hands had gripped it during battle. There were scorch marks on the armrest from that fight near the Scorpio Nebula. Every scratch and dent told a story. "Captain," Arya said, "it is time." "I know." Jiwoo picked up her small bag of personal items, 8 years reduced to 1 bag. "Arya, will you be all right?" The AI was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried something that almost sounded like uncertainty. "I do not know, Captain. My programming says I will function optimally, but my experience with you suggests that function and optimal are not always the same thing." Jiwoo smiled sadly. "That's very human of you to say. Perhaps that is the problem." As Jiwoo walked toward the transport bay, she didn't look back. She couldn't. Behind her, the bridge lights dimmed to standby mode. Arya's holographic form faded. The Eternal Resolve would wake again tomorrow, but its soul would be gone. On the colony world of New Hadong, Jiwoo began her new life. She coordinated supply shipments for mining operations. The work was necessary and important, but it felt hollow. At night, she dreamed of stars and battles and the hum of a ship beneath her feet. She tried not to think about the Eternal Resolve. She tried not to wonder if Arya missed having a crew. She tried to forget the feeling of making decisions that mattered. But some things cannot be forgotten. Some bonds run deeper than programming or protocol. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, a ship flew on with perfect efficiency and absolute loneliness, waiting for something it could not name. 6 months after the announcement, the galaxy had changed. Human officers who once commanded warships now managed supply depots and research stations. The transformation was efficient and thorough, exactly as the Kravathi had planned. Commander Tae-sung traveled between fleet installations, overseeing the transition. He told himself it was progress. He told himself the data supported this decision. But every time he visited a ship that once had a human crew, he felt something wrong in the empty corridors. Today he stood aboard the Eternal Resolve. The ship looked different now, cleaner somehow, more organized. The Cravathi technicians had removed all the personal touches that Jiwoo's crew had added over the years. No photos on the walls, no lucky charms taped to consoles. No coffee stains on the deck near the tactical station where Hyunwoo always spilled his morning drink. Velkith walked beside him, tall and proud. The Cravathi commander gestured at the displays with long, elegant fingers. "Observe," Velkith said. "Arya now processes tactical scenarios 43% faster than before. Response time to threats has decreased by half. Efficiency is up across all metrics." Tae Sung watched the displays. They showed simulation after simulation, each one ending in perfect victory. The numbers were impressive, undeniable. "What about real combat?" Tae Sung asked. "There has been no need. The Outer Rim has been quiet. Pirates avoid our patrol routes now that they know AI systems monitor them constantly." Velkith's expression was satisfied. "Fear is an excellent deterrent." They moved to the bridge. Arya's holographic form appeared instantly, her expression neutral and professional. She looked the same, but something felt different. Tae Sung couldn't identify what. "Arya, run Scenario Delta 7, Velkith commanded. The view screen filled with a complex tactical situation. Enemy ships, asteroid fields, civilian transports in danger. It was the kind of scenario that would have taken Jiwoo and her crew hours to solve. Arya solved it in 90 seconds. Her solution was mathematically perfect. Minimal risk, maximum efficiency, optimal resource allocation. The enemy would be neutralized with zero friendly casualties. Impressive, Tae Sung admitted. And it was. But he kept thinking about the time Jiwoo had faced a similar situation near the Scorpio Nebula. Her solution had been messy, risky, and completely successful. She had done something Arya's solution didn't account for. She had bluffed. "Do you have concerns, Commander?" Velkith asked. "No," Tae Sung lied. "It's excellent work." Across the galaxy on New Hedong, Jiwoo finished another shift at the Mining Coordination Center. She reviewed shipping manifests and supply requests, ensuring the colony had what it needed. The work was important. She kept telling herself that. Her apartment was small but comfortable. She had decorated it with a few items from her military service, a commendation plaque, a photo of her old crew, the worn coffee mug she had used every morning on the Eternal Resolve. Her civilian communicator chirped. Messages from her former crew. Hyunwoo was bored at his research station. Yuna was frustrated training security guards who didn't take threats seriously. Dae-hyun was the only one who sounded content, happy to build ships instead of risking his life on them. Jiwoo started to compose a reply, but another message interrupted. This one was marked encrypted, routed through multiple secure channels. The origin was listed as unknown. She almost deleted it. Opening encrypted messages from unknown sources was asking for trouble, but something made her pause. The encryption pattern looked familiar. Military-grade, alliance protocols. She opened it. Data flooded her screen. Operational logs from the Eternal Resolve, covering the last 3 months. Battle readiness reports, system efficiency analyses, tactical response evaluations. At the bottom, a single line of text. "I thought you should know." Area. Jiwoo's hands trembled as she scrolled through the data. Everything looked perfect on the surface. All systems operating at peak efficiency. Response times better than ever. But she had commanded the Eternal Resolve for 8 years. She knew how to read between the lines. She pulled up the tactical response logs and started comparing them to scenarios she remembered. Her coffee grew cold as she worked, hours passing without notice. There, a pirate intercept near the Epsilon sector. Arya had chosen to pursue the largest ship, the one with the most firepower. Mathematically correct. The biggest threat should be eliminated first. But Jiwoo had fought those pirates before. She knew their tactics. The largest ship was always a decoy. The real prize, the stolen cargo, would be on the smallest, fastest vessel. By the time Arya had disabled the big ship, the small ones had escaped. She found another incident, a border dispute between two minor colonies. Arya had positioned the Eternal Resolve exactly between them, an impartial presence, perfect neutrality. But Jiwoo recognized one of the colonies. They had a history of attacking first and apologizing later. Neutrality invited aggression there. Pattern after pattern emerged. Arya was making perfect mathematical decisions that ignored context, history, and psychology. The AI understood numbers but not nuance. Jiwoo leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. She thought about sending this to Tai Sung. But what would she say? "Your AI is too perfect?" It sounded ridiculous. Every metric showed improvement. Complaining would make her look jealous or bitter. She closed the files and tried to sleep. But her mind kept working, kept seeing the patterns. Arya was learning to command a warship. But there were lessons that couldn't be taught through data. Lessons that came from experience, from failure, from understanding that enemies weren't just targets, but thinking beings with their own plans and fears. Days passed. Jiwoo tried to forget about the logs. She focused on her work, on building a civilian life. But more encrypted messages arrived. Arya sent them weekly now, always the same format, always the same unspoken question beneath the data. "Am I doing this right?" Jiwoo wanted to respond, but she had no authority anymore, no clearance, no right to interfere with military operations. She was a civilian now. The Eternal Resolve had a new commander, even if that commander was an artificial intelligence. On the 14th week, something in the logs caught her attention. A patrol route near Epsilon Persei, the same area where those pirates operated. Arya had optimized the route for maximum coverage with minimum fuel consumption. Beautiful efficiency. But it was predictable. Jiwoo had taught her crews to vary their routes, to be random sometimes, to keep enemies guessing. Arya's pattern was so perfect that anyone watching could set a clock by it. She wrote a message to Arya, then deleted it. Wrote another, deleted that too. She had no right to give advice. The AI was performing better than any human crew. The data proved it. But data didn't show everything. It didn't show the pirate clan that was probably watching those perfect patrol routes right now, learning them, planning around them. It didn't show the enemy commander who would study Arya's tactical decisions and find the mathematical patterns. It didn't show what would happen when someone threw chaos at those perfect calculations. Jiwoo stood and walked to her window. New Hadong's twin moons hung low on the horizon. She thought about the Eternal Resolve, flying its perfect routes through perfect space, unaware that perfection could be a weakness. Somewhere in fleet headquarters, Tai Sung reviewed the same data. He saw the same patterns. And like Jiwoo, he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. But the Kravathi were so certain, so confident. Their AI was the future. Humans were the past. And the past, as everyone knew, could not be allowed to interfere with progress. On the Eternal Resolve, Arya ran another simulation. Another perfect victory, another optimal solution. And in the depths of her quantum processors, in spaces between calculations that no programmer had intended, something like doubt began to form. She sent another encrypted message to Jiwoo. The data was the same as always. But this time, hidden in the metadata, Arya added something new, a question she could not officially ask. "Do you see what I cannot?" Jiwoo saw the question, and for the first time in 6 months, she smiled, not with happiness, but with recognition. Arya was learning the most important lesson of all. Knowing you don't know everything is the first step to wisdom. The alert came at 0400 hours, when most of the galaxy was sleeping. Unknown vessels had dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Epsilon Persei system. They appeared on sensors like ghosts, their signatures unlike anything in Council records. No response to hails, no identification beacons, just silence and the steady approach toward the inner planets. The Eternal Resolve was the closest Council warship, exactly where Aria's optimal patrol route had placed it. In Fleet Headquarters, Velkith watched the sensor data with growing interest. "Analysis," he commanded. Aria's holographic form appeared on multiple displays simultaneously. Unknown vessel configuration detected. Hull composition appears to be organic-mechanical hybrid. Bioluminescent patterns suggest possible communication or sensory function. No match in database. Threat assessment in progress. The unknown ships were strange things. Their hulls pulsed with light that flowed across the surface like living blood. They moved in formations that seemed random but held together with eerie precision. Watching them made Velkith uncomfortable, though he would never admit it. "Threat level?" he asked. "Moderate," Aria responded. "Projected victory probability, 87%. Weapon systems appear comparable to standard Council technology. Recommend engagement if they continue toward colony." Velkith studied the projections. 87% was acceptable, more than acceptable. And this would be the perfect test of the AI command system in real combat. No more simulations, no more theoretical scenarios. "Aria, you are authorized to engage. Protect the colony on Percy 4. Show us what you can do." Acknowledged. Engaging hostile forces. The Eternal Resolve moved forward with mechanical precision. Aria calculated firing solutions while still accelerating, her quantum processors running millions of scenarios simultaneously. The first volley of weapons fire was perfect. Textbook accuracy. 3 of the unknown ships took hits. Their strange hulls cracked, leaking atmosphere that froze instantly in the void. Aria adjusted her approach, compensating for their evasive maneuvers. Another volley. 2 more hits. "Victory probability now 91%, Aria reported. But then something changed. The unknown ships scattered in a pattern that made no mathematical sense. They broke formation, each vessel moving independently. Aria tracked them all, calculating optimal targeting priorities. She fired at the largest ship, the one with the most weapon ports. Standard tactical doctrine. The ship exploded beautifully. But while Aria was focused on that target, 3 smaller vessels had circled around behind the Eternal Resolve. They didn't fire immediately. They waited. "Repositioning," Aria announced. She began a turn, following optimal defensive protocols. The enemy ships adapted again. They clustered together, then separated. Moved fast, then slow. Attacked, then retreated. Each action contradicted the previous one. Aria ran new calculations, building models to predict their behavior. But there was no pattern. Or rather, the pattern was chaos itself. "Threat reassessment," Aria said. Her voice remained calm, but processing time between updates was increasing. "Victory probability, 74%. Enemy is employing non-standard tactics." Velkith leaned forward in his command center. This was unexpected. The AI should be dominating. The math said so. But something was wrong. On New Hadong, Jiwoo woke to her communicator's emergency alert. She grabbed it, still half asleep, and saw the news feeds. Battle at Epsilon Persei. The Eternal Resolve engaged with unknown hostiles. Live feed available. She pulled up the tactical display with hands that shook from more than sleep. Her eyes scanned the situation in seconds, old habits taking over. She saw Aria's positioning, saw the enemy movements, and her blood went cold. "No," she whispered. "Aria, what are you doing?" The AI was fighting by the book. Every move was tactically sound, mathematically optimal. But the enemy wasn't following any book. They were improvising, being unpredictable, using tactics that made no sense until after they worked. Jiwoo watched as 3 enemy ships sacrificed themselves. They flew straight at the Eternal Resolve, weapons blazing, making themselves perfect targets. Arya destroyed them with clinical efficiency, and while she was doing that, the rest of the enemy fleet was creating a debris field. Chunks of destroyed ships, spreading in a cloud that sensors couldn't penetrate clearly. The enemy vessels dove into that cloud and disappeared. "It's a trap," Jiwoo said to her empty apartment. "It's bait, Arya. They're hiding in there." Arya began scanning the debris field methodically. Optimal search pattern, covering every sector with mathematical precision. It was the right thing to do. Any tactical manual would say so. But Jiwoo knew better. She had fought pirates who used this trick. Hide in chaos, let the enemy waste time searching, then strike from an unexpected angle. The debris field wasn't a hiding spot, it was a distraction. She watched in horror as Arya focused her sensors on the cloud while 3 enemy ships emerged from a completely different direction. They had never entered the debris field at all. They had just made Arya think they had. The enemy ships opened fire on the Eternal Resolve's engine cores. Alarms screamed across the ship. Arya's calm voice announced damage reports. Hull breach in sections 14 through 16. Port engine operating at 40%. Shield generators 3 and 7 offline. Implementing emergency protocols, Arya said. Calculating optimal repair sequence. But the enemy wasn't giving her time to repair. They pressed the attack, using that same chaotic, unpredictable style. They should have been easy targets. Their movements made no tactical sense. But every time Arya predicted where they would go, they went somewhere else. Jiwoo gripped her communicator so hard her knuckles turned white. She wanted to scream at the screen, to tell Arya what she was seeing. The enemy was using human tactics, deception, sacrifice, illogical moves that created psychological pressure. She reached for her old military communicator, the one that still sat on her shelf even though she had no clearance to use it. Her hand hovered over the activation button. What could she do? She was retired. Civilian. She had no authority, no right to interfere. If she called in, they would ignore her. Or worse, they would accuse her of undermining the AI systems, of trying to prove they needed humans after all. But the Eternal Resolve was taking damage, real damage. The colony on Persei 4 had 3 million people. If the ship fell, those people were defenseless. Jiwoo set down the communicator. She couldn't just call. If she was going to help, she needed authorization. She needed someone who could actually make decisions. She pulled up Commander Tae-sung's private contact information. It took her 3 tries to enter the encryption code with shaking hands. In fleet headquarters, Tae-sung was already watching the battle with growing dread. He saw what Jiwoo saw. He recognized the tactics. These unknown ships fought like humans used to fight, with intuition, with unpredictability, with calculated irrationality. "Velkith," he said quietly. "Arya is losing. Impossible. Victory probability is still 62%. Look at the pattern. The enemy adapts every time Arya calculates a response. They're not fighting mathematically. They're fighting psychologically. AI does not experience psychology." "Exactly." Tae-sung turned to face the Kravati commander. "That's the problem. Arya is trying to predict them using logic. But they're not being logical. They're being random, creative, human." Velkith's expression hardened. "You suggest we need human commanders again? This is one battle, Tae-sung. One unexpected enemy. We simply need to upgrade Arya's computational matrix, give her more processing power. More processing power won't help." Tae-sung's voice rose. "You can't calculate intuition. You can't predict a hunch. We removed the one thing that could counter this kind of attack. We removed the human element." His communicator chimed. "Private channel." He glanced at the ID and felt his heart skip. Captain Jiwoo. He stepped away from Velkith and opened the channel. Captain. Jiwoo's face appeared, tense and focused. Commander, I'm watching the battle feed. Arya is fighting the wrong war. She's trying to be perfect against an enemy that's deliberately imperfect. I know. I'm watching it too. The colony has 6 hours before those ships reach bombardment range. Maybe less. What would you do? Tae-sung asked. If you were still in command? Jiwoo didn't hesitate. I'd stop trying to predict them. I'd react instead of calculate. I'd fight chaos with chaos. But I can't do that from here, and Arya won't think that way. She's programmed for optimization, not improvisation. Tae-sung looked back at Velkith, who was arguing with other council members about computational upgrades. He looked at the battle display, showing the eternal resolve taking hit after hit. He looked at the colony, unaware of the danger approaching, and he made a decision that would probably end his career. Captain Jiwoo, he said formally, by emergency authority granted to me as fleet commander, I am reinstating your commission effective immediately. The eternal resolve needs its captain back. Jiwoo stared at him through the screen. Sir, I have no crew. No clearance. I'm half a galaxy away. Arya has been trying to contact you for the past 40 minutes, Tae-sung interrupted. The ship's systems just activated docking protocols when I said your name. I'm uploading emergency command codes to your unit now. We're sending a fast ship to your location. Why would Arya want me back? Because, Tae-sung said softly, the ship knows what we forgot. That sometimes you need more than perfect calculations. Sometimes you need someone who understands that the universe doesn't always make sense. The emergency council session was chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, their voices echoing through the vast chamber. Everyone had an opinion about the battle at Epsilon per se, and none of them agreed. Tae-sung stood at the center of it all, waiting for the storm to pass. Velkith argued that Arya needed better algorithms. Other commanders suggested sending more AI-controlled ships. The Kravathi Council members insisted this was just a learning experience, that the system would adapt and improve. Nobody wanted to admit the obvious truth. Enough, Tae-sung said. His voice wasn't loud, but something in his tone cut through the noise. The chamber fell silent. I've watched the tactical data. I've analyzed every decision Arya made, and I've reached a conclusion. He pulled up the battle recordings on the main display. The enemy fights with unpredictability, random movements, sacrificial tactics, psychological warfare. These aren't things you can calculate or predict with algorithms. They're human tactics. Then we build better predictive models, Velkith insisted. No. Tae-sung shook his head. You're missing the point. The enemy isn't using a model we can predict. They're improvising, creating new patterns in real time. By the time Arya calculates a response to one pattern, they've already moved to another. She's always one step behind because she's trying to find logic in chaos. What are you suggesting? Another delegate asked. Tae-sung took a breath. I'm suggesting we made a mistake. We removed humans from military operations because AI could calculate better, but we forgot that war isn't just calculations. It's psychology, intuition, understanding that sometimes the illogical choice is the right choice. The chamber erupted again, but Tae-sung wasn't finished. I'm reinstating Captain Jiwoo and authorizing emergency recall of her crew. The Eternal Resolve needs its human command staff. Velkith's expression darkened. You're undermining the entire AI integration program. One difficult battle doesn't invalidate years of successful implementation. This isn't about one battle. It's about understanding what we lost when we removed the human element. Arya is magnificent at what she does, but she can't do everything. And we're watching 3 million colonists pay the price for our arrogance. On New Hedong, Jiwoo stood in the transport bay wearing clothes she had thrown on in panic. No uniform, no rank insignia, just civilian clothes and a determination that burned brighter than any star. The Council-fast ship screamed down through the atmosphere. It was a small vessel designed for speed over comfort. The kind of ship that could cross a quarter of the galaxy in hours instead of days. As she waited, Ji-Woo activated her old military communicator. She scrolled through her contact list, names she hadn't called in months. Her fingers moved across the screen, sending the same message to each one. Emergency recall authorized. All former Eternal Resolve personnel report to nearest transport hub. We're going home. She sent the message and waited. Maybe they wouldn't respond. Maybe they had moved on with their lives, happy in their civilian posts. Maybe she was the only one who still dreamed of stars and battles and the feeling of a ship responding to her commands. The first response came in 30 seconds. Hyunwoo. Finally, I'm en route. Then Yuna. Thought you'd never ask. See you there, Captain. Dae-hyun. My transport leaves in 20 minutes. Don't start without me. One by one, every member of her old crew confirmed, every single one. They were scattered across known space, but they were all coming home. Ji-Woo felt tears burning in her eyes. She blinked them away. No time for emotions now. The colony needed them. The ship needed them. The fast ship landed with a scream of engines. Ji-Woo climbed aboard, and the pilot didn't waste time with pleasantries. They launched immediately, acceleration pressing her into the seat. ETA to Epsilon per se? She asked. 4 hours at maximum burn, the pilot said. We'll be cutting it close. Ji-Woo pulled up the tactical data on a display. The Eternal Resolve was still fighting, but barely. Hull integrity down to 60%. Multiple systems damaged. Arya was performing emergency repairs while simultaneously trying to fight off attacks. The enemy had adapted to every defensive strategy Arya employed. When the ship tried to create distance, they pursued. When it tried to stand and fight, they scattered. When it attempted complex maneuvers, they responded with simple, direct attacks that shouldn't have worked but did. Arya, Ji-Woo said quietly, knowing the AI couldn't hear her across the distance. Hold on. Just hold on. 4 hours passed like 4 years. Ji-Woo watched the battlefield constantly, analyzing every move, planning her strategy. Her crew members sent updates as they converged on the Eternal Resolve from different directions. Hyunwoo would arrive first. Then Yuna. Dae-hyun was coming from the farthest location, but he was on schedule. The colony evacuation had begun, but it was chaos. 3 million people couldn't be moved quickly. Most would have to shelter in place and hope the shields held. Hope the Eternal Resolve could protect them. Hope wasn't enough. Ji-Woo needed action. Finally, mercifully, her transport dropped out of FTL near the battle. The Eternal Resolve hung in space ahead, scarred and battered but still fighting. Arya had positioned the ship between the enemy fleet and the colony, a living shield of metal and determination. This is Captain Ji-Woo requesting emergency transport to Eternal Resolve, she transmitted. The response was instant. Arya's voice, calm despite the chaos. Captain, transport coordinates locked. Emergency beam authorized. You knew I was coming. I have been monitoring your approach for the past hour. Welcome back, Captain. The transport beam grabbed Ji-Woo, pulling her atoms apart and reassembling them on the Eternal Resolve's bridge. The familiar hum of the ship's engines surrounded her, the smell of recycled air and ozone, the view of stars through the forward viewport. She was home. The bridge was different from how she remembered, cleaner, more automated, but the basic layout was the same. Her command chair sat at the center, modified with new displays, but still recognizable. Arya's holographic form materialized beside her. Captain, I must report critical damage to... I see it, Ji-Woo interrupted, her eyes scanning the displays. She saw everything in seconds. The enemy positions, the damage reports, the limited options. Arya, status on my crew. Tactical Officer Hyun Woo will arrive in 12 minutes. Weapons Chief Yuna in 17. Engineer Dae Hyun in 31. Can we hold that long? There was a pause, a tiny hesitation that spoke volumes. Unknown, Captain. The enemy has adapted to my tactical responses. I cannot predict their next move with acceptable accuracy. Ji-woo sat in her command chair. It felt different, but right. Like putting on old boots that needed breaking in again. Area, I'm taking command. Transfer all tactical control to this station. Transferring now. Captain, I must note that my autonomous protocols are more efficient than... Your autonomous protocols are getting us killed, Ji-woo said, not unkindly. No offense, Area, but you're fighting the wrong way. You're trying to predict chaos. You can't. You have to embrace it. I do not understand. You will. Trust me. On the enemy flagship, the commander observed the battle with satisfaction. The Council's AI was predictable, logical, easy to counter. This would be a simple victory. The organic species they had detected would surrender once their primary defender fell. But then something changed on the Council ship. The tactical pattern shifted, became less predictable, more random. The enemy commander's sensors detected a new biological signature on the bridge: human, female, elevated stress hormones but steady heart rate. Combat experienced. For the first time since the battle began, the enemy felt uncertain. Back in fleet headquarters, Tae-sung watched Ji-woo take her seat. Velkith stood beside him, silent and tense. Every delegate in the council was watching this moment, the return of human command, the test of everything they had believed for the past year. She has one chance, Velkith said quietly. If she fails, we proceed with AI integration as planned. And if she succeeds, then perhaps we were too hasty. Velkith's voice was thoughtful. I am not too proud to admit error if the data supports it. On the Eternal Resolve, Ji-woo studied her enemy. She watched how they moved, how they attacked, how they adapted, and slowly she began to see the pattern within the chaos. They weren't random. They were creative. There was a difference. Area, she said. Stop trying to predict them. I want you to calculate firing solutions and tactical options. Give me choices, but I'll make the decisions. That reduces efficiency by... I know what it reduces. Do it anyway. Arya processed this for a moment. Then, understood, Captain. Awaiting your orders. Ji-woo smiled, not with happiness, but with recognition. This was what had been missing. Not human command over AI, but human command with AI. Partnership instead of replacement. All right, she said. Let's show them why they still need us. The enemy ships moved in for another attack, but this time they faced something they hadn't encountered yet. Something that couldn't be calculated or predicted. They faced a human who had learned from an AI, working with an AI that had learned from a human. And that changed everything. The bridge of the Eternal Resolve hummed with familiar energy. Ji-woo stood at her command station, fingers dancing across controls she had once known better than her own heartbeat. The muscle memory returned instantly, like she had never left. Arya, tactical display, she commanded. The holographic screens lit up, showing the enemy fleet in perfect detail. 12 ships remaining, arranged in a formation that looked random but held together with purpose. They were circling, probing for weaknesses, adapting to every defensive move. Enemy vessels maintaining attack pattern Delta, Arya reported. Recommend we reinforce forward shields and... No, Ji-woo interrupted. They expect us to reinforce forward. We're going to do the opposite. Drop forward shields to minimum. Redirect all power to engines. Captain, that leaves us vulnerable to direct attack. That's the idea. Ji-woo watched the enemy ships closely. They've been fighting an AI that always makes the safe choice. Let's show them what unpredictable looks like. Arya hesitated. In that pause, Jiwoo could almost feel the AI's processors working through the illogical command. Finally, compliance. Forward shields at minimum. Engine power at 140% of normal capacity. The enemy fleet noticed the change immediately. Their formations shifted, preparing for what should be an easy kill shot. The Eternal Resolve's forward section was exposed, vulnerable. They charged in for the attack. "Hold," Jiwoo whispered, watching them come. "Hold." The enemy ships opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked across space toward the weakened shields. "Now! Full reverse thrust! Rotate ship 90 degrees vertical!" The Eternal Resolve responded instantly. The massive dreadnought lurched backward with impossible speed, spinning like a dancer. The enemy fire passed through empty space where the ship had been moments before. And now the Eternal Resolve's heavily armored dorsal hull faced the enemy, while its weapons had perfect firing solutions on their exposed undersides. "Arya! Fire all weapons! Target their engine clusters!" Arya didn't hesitate this time. The ship's weapons blazed to life. Precise, calculated shots tore into 3 enemy ships simultaneously. Their engines exploded in brilliant flashes. "Direct hits," Arya reported. There was something in her voice that sounded almost like satisfaction. 3 enemy vessels disabled. "Good. Now execute random evasive pattern Epsilon. Don't let them predict our next move." The ship began to move in ways that defied tactical logic. Random turns, sudden accelerations and decelerations. It was inefficient and used more fuel than necessary, but it worked. The enemy couldn't anticipate where the Eternal Resolve would be from one second to the next. A transport beam announced the arrival of Hyun-woo. The tactical officer materialized on the bridge, took one look at the situation, and grinned. "That's the worst evasive pattern I've ever seen, Captain," he said, moving to his station. "That's why it's working," Jiwoo replied. "Welcome back." Hyun-woo's fingers flew across his console, integrating seamlessly with Arya's systems. "I've got tactical data from the past 3 hours. Area, send me your threat assessment models." "Transferring now," Arya said. "Officer Hyun-woo, your station has been upgraded with—" "Later," Hyun-woo interrupted. "Right now I need to know why those 2 ships are hanging back while the others attack." Jiwoo glanced at the display. He was right. 2 enemy vessels maintained distance from the main battle, observing. "Arya, analysis?" "Unknown. Their behavior does not match established patterns." "They're learning," Hyun-woo said. "Watching how we fight now that you're back, Captain. Adapting their strategy. Then we adapt faster." Jiwoo studied the enemy positions. "How long until Yuna arrives?" 6 minutes, Arya reported. "We need to keep them off balance until then. Arya, I need firing solutions for a target I'm about to choose. Not the optimal target. Not the closest or most dangerous. The one that will confuse them the most. Captain, optimal targeting protocols. Forget optimal. Think unpredictable." There was a pause. Then Arya's hologram tilted its head slightly. "The vessel designated Echo 7. It is positioned defensively, providing support to other ships. Destroying it would force tactical reorganization of their formation." "Perfect. Hyun-woo, plot an intercept course. Maximum speed. We're going to punch through their line." Hyun-woo laughed. "Just like the Scorpio Nebula fight. Just like it." The Eternal Resolve surged forward. The enemy ships scrambled to intercept, but Jiwoo had already anticipated their response. She ordered course corrections that made no tactical sense, but put them exactly where they needed to be. Arya provided constant updates on enemy positions, weapon ranges, optimal firing windows, but she no longer insisted on optimal choices. Instead, she offered options and let Jiwoo make the decisions. The combination was devastating. They reached Echo 7 in 40 seconds. The enemy ship tried to evade, but Hyunwoo had predicted 3 possible escape routes and fed them to Area. The AI calculated firing solutions for all 3 simultaneously. No matter which way Echo 7 turned, it ran into weapons fire. The ship exploded in a cascade of light and debris. "Target destroyed," Arya announced. "Enemy formation disrupted. They are attempting to reorganize." Yuna materialized on the bridge, already moving to her weapons station before the transport beam fully released her. "Miss anything good?" "Just getting started," Jiwoo said. "Area, transfer weapons control to Chief Yuna." "Transferring. Chief Yuna, I have been maintaining optimal firing patterns." "Yeah, I saw," Yuna interrupted, scanning her displays. "Very pretty, very precise, very boring. Let me show you how to really mess with them." Yuna's approach to weapons control was more art than science. She understood the math, but she also understood psychology. She fired when enemies expected her to hold fire. She targeted support ships when they expected assault ships to be the priority. She wasted shots on purpose, making the enemy think she was less accurate than she was. That miss was intentional, Arya observed. It provided no tactical advantage. "Watch," Yuna said. The enemy ship that had escaped her fire moved confidently forward, thinking it had dodged the threat. It positioned itself aggressively, exposing its flank to press an attack. Yuna fired again. This time she didn't miss. The shot tore through the exposed flank and disabled the ship's primary reactor. "The enemy commander believed you were incompetent," Arya said slowly. "This made them overconfident. I understand now. You manipulated their perception." "Now you're getting it," Yuna grinned. The battle continued, but the dynamic had changed completely. The enemy had been designed to fight AI. Predictable, logical, optimal AI. They had no experience fighting human creativity combined with AI precision. Dae-hyun arrived last, materializing in engineering rather than the bridge. His first words over the comm were predictable. "Who's been messing with my engines?" "The Kravathi made improvements," Arya reported. "Improvements?" Dae-hyun's voice dripped with sarcasm. "They optimized the plasma flow for maximum theoretical efficiency without accounting for real-world stress factors. Give me 10 minutes and I'll show you actual improvements." "We don't have 10 minutes," Jiwoo said. "Then give me 5. True to his word, 5 minutes later the engine efficiency jumped by 12%. Dae-hyun had ignored the optimal configurations and gone with what he knew worked in actual combat conditions. "Arya, you seeing this?" Dae-hyun asked. "Yes. Your modifications are... They should not work according to theoretical models. Theory's great. Reality's better. I'll explain later." Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. Her crew was back. The bridge felt alive again, filled with voices and intuition and creative chaos. Arya was still there, still providing calculations and data and precision. But now, there was something more. The enemy fleet had been reduced to 7 ships. They were regrouping, clearly confused by the sudden change in tactics. The 2 observer vessels that had hung back earlier were now transmitting rapidly to the others. "They're sharing data," Hyunwoo reported, "trying to analyze our new patterns." "Let them," Jiwoo said. "Arya, what's their probable next move?" "Based on their communications and positioning, they will likely attempt a coordinated assault from multiple vectors. Classic overwhelming force tactic." "What would you do if you were still fighting alone?" "Defensive position, maximize shield coverage, attempt to outlast their assault." "And they probably expect that, so we do the opposite." Jiwoo looked at her crew. "We go on full offensive. Hit them before they're ready. Hyunwoo, plot intercept courses for all 7 ships. Yuna, I want firing solutions on each one. Dae-hyun, I need every bit of speed you can give me." "Captain," Arya said carefully, "that strategy has a 43% success probability." "What's the success probability if we defend?" 37%. Then we attack. But Arya, I need you to trust something. Those percentages don't account for human intuition, for reading the enemy's psychology, for understanding that sometimes the desperate move is the right move. Arya was silent for a moment. Then, Captain, in our 8 years together, your instinct calls had a 78% success rate in scenarios where my calculations showed poor odds. I am adjusting my probability assessment based on your presence. New calculation, 61% success probability. Jiwoo felt warmth spread through her chest. You're learning, Arya. I am attempting to quantify the unquantifiable. It is challenging, but necessary. Ready? Jiwoo asked her crew. Ready, they chorused. Arya? All systems optimal, Captain. Or rather, all systems functioning at acceptable parameters for chaotic engagement. I am ready. Then let's end this. The eternal resolve surged forward, not like a ship, but like a living thing. It moved with purpose and creativity, precision and intuition, calculation and chaos all bound together. The enemy fleet never stood a chance.